Okay. Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've had a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, which we'll go through. But if there's anybody here live on the call who would like to ask any questions, please feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, there's usually a bunch of other amazing SEOs live on the call that share their ideas, experiences, and perspectives. I personally think that's one of the best things about SEO Office Hours is not just hearing from the four of us, but from everybody else on the call. So please continue to do that. And if you're watching afterwards on YouTube, come join us live. It's so much better, I can promise you. Like always, with me today is Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Good morning.
Hello, Mike. It's great to be back. I was just away for just one episode. That was our 79th episode. And a big thank you to Simon Cox for being our co-host.
Yes,
As I
thank you,
mentioned
Simon.
before the recording, he has been with us for a long time and he's an active member of our search community, like many of you that have joined us today. So just want a big thank you to that. Today is our 80th episode of SEO. As Mike said, I'm Juliana Turnbull. I also run events in my free time, Search London and Search Barcelona. Our next one is October 14th. So if anyone's in Barcelona, do come along. And if anybody wants to sponsor, do let me know so we can have drinks, food, and also have a photographer. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We always have a great number of participants, active audience members adding in the chat, writing in the chat. We have, as I mentioned, quite a few people calling in from different countries today: India, Spain, UK, Poland, Nigeria. If I've missed any countries, let me know. And I also want to give a thank you to Albert, Caitlin for joining us. Francesca, you've been here a lot of times as well. Jeff, Dave, John, hello, Louise, Mark, and Max. We also have Monse, Muya, Nafisha, Naveen, Victoria, Preeti, Rob, Sharia, Simon, Tom, of course, Walid, and a few others that are not joining us live. As Mike said, if you are joining the recording, thank you for that. Click a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also join us live. It's great fun. And I'm really pleased today on our 80th episode to be welcoming Tom and Ian. Thank you for coming on our show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So Ian, you are an e-commerce SEO consultant. You've got over 15 years experience helping brands globally grow. You've specialized in data-driven SEO strategies. You also have a strong UX focus. You combine it with tech SEO and on-page optimization. You do a lot of different elements of SEO. How do you do it all?
Well, still figuring it out, 15 years in. But that's just comes from a background working kind of agency side and starting off from literally doing it all. But the approach now is trying to refine it more and just to go to focusing more on e-commerce. But I find more and more that involves having to know about UX, having to know around conversion rate optimization.
And you're also a writer of the popular SEO TLDR newsletter. Perhaps maybe you can share that in the chat so people can subscribe to it. And you've also been recently on the Search with Candor podcast.
Earlier the week, yeah.
Oh, excellent. And Mark William Crooks, who runs that with his agency with Jack. He and the honest today. Thank you for coming.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
So now I feel like you don't need to plug in because it's infinitely better.
No, it's
for core updates. Sign up for SEO TLDR.
Yeah, it's a very impressive newsletter too. And also this past April, you did an e-commerce masterclass at Brighton, and that's when you said you started your freelance journey. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. It came at the right time. I think I was 8 days into freelancing and
well
just the
done.
masterclass, so it's pretty good. So I managed to get my first kind of couple of clients from that. And that was focusing again, just I thought I'd go really specific. It was technical issues for Shopify sites. But there was some other people in the room from like other e-commerce backgrounds because you can translate it how it is. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I'm attending again in October, not as a speaker this time, just as an observer, it takes the kind of the stress off a bit. So it'd be nice to go and relax and not have to do a talk.
Great. For those that are joining or coming to Brighton SEO, do connect with Ian. I've just shared his details there in the chat and look forward to hearing your answers, Ian, today. So I'd like to also introduce Tom Winter. So Tom, you are also quite a busy person. You have actually your own company as well. You're co-founder of SEO Wind. So this is an AI-powered tool that helps teams to write content, which are designed, of course, to drive traffic. You've spent the past decade scaling companies as well from the ground up, including to actually taking one venture from 0 customers to a global reach in over 100 countries, entirely self-funded as well. That is seriously impressive. How did you do that? Because you're also a self-taught programmer, sales veteran, and entrepreneur.
Having a good team, like basically having a good team. So we founded DevSkiller with a couple of other friends that were really amazing programmers, and we had a good team to be able to do it. So that was a fun ride. And now like I'm going through a similar roller coaster with SEO Wind.
Okay, that's some good insight. You said yourself, though, that you are a developer, have a developer brain and a marketer's heart. So that seems to have quite a good combination, actually, because you understand the code and the work that goes into it, yet you can also market it too.
It's very useful because most of the POCs I can do it on my own, but because I'm a self-taught programmer, my developers hate my code. It works. I can do a POC. Like if it works, I just hand it over and tell them refactor it in the way that it should be written. But because of Cloud Code right now, like my code got like a lot better. So they treat it with more respect.
Well, it's good to be able to understand and write code, even if developers don't always like what you have written. You at least know you can do the foundations. You've also spoken at many different conferences like Brighton SEO, Digital Marketing Europe, SEO Summit Zagreb, and you will be at Chiang Mai SEO conference. I'll just put that in the chat. Are you also speaking there?
Yes, I'm speaking
Okay.
there and I'll be talking about using EEAT in content creation there.
Okay, great. I'll just share the link in there. So if anyone is over there in a couple of months' time, please do connect with Tom. But you can also, in the meantime, connect with Tom on LinkedIn. I've shared those details in the chat. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think I've got loads of questions out with Mike, so I guess we'll crack on with that.
Super. Okay, question one. We've had similar questions in the past, actually. One answer might be to have a look at some previous videos. We're migrating from example-old.com to example-new.com because the business requires us to change the domain name. Both domains will need to run in parallel for about 6 months while customers transition. As an interim step, would adding canonicals from the old URLs to the new ones help shift rankings early, or will Google largely ignore them until full 301 redirects are in place? Have you seen this approach work in migrations where 2 domains temporarily exist? Our goal is for the new domain to start ranking quickly, since that's where they want customers to sign up. Who would like to kick off on this one?
That's
Yeah, go for it.
No, I was going to say that that's so weird because I'm literally working on a site who've got that exact same scenario to the point, even like the 6 month part. So I've been interested to hear
Is it
from
your
someone
client?
else
Good
to
on you.
say it could genuinely be because they're calling us out. I've got my answer, but it'd be interesting to hear somebody else's
Okay.
and see if it mirrors up.
Okay. Joe, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I would actually say I would actually just rip that band-aid off, do all your testing on your staging server, and then make the switch. Make the switch when everyone is available. So not obviously like Friday night, your e-commerce site, in time for the weekend. Just make sure that you actually have everything set in plan. So it basically a lot of planning in place, but no, I wouldn't have them ranking at the same time. I would just have one on staging and then switch over.
No, it's good to hear. That backs up my thought process as well. I don't think it's a good idea to have them parallel. Just when you get dilution, did they mention using canonical lag?
They
It's
did.
like an
They did.
interim step.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that they're only kind of hints, so it'd be best just to have the redirect from the get-go, I guess. I don't know why they'd have to have both in parallel, but yeah, ideally you want to just 301 as quickly as you can, not have them in parallel.
Great. Tom, do you have anything to add?
So I will add a little bit, like because we talked about the technical part, like we all agree that like it's better to do it, rip the band-aid off and just switch it. But I would love to know the reason behind why somebody wants to stay with the 6 months, because to be honest, like the only reason that I can think of is like the switching part of the users. And I think it will not happen. People are lazy. So if you will do this like overlap of 6 months, what kind of communication will you do on the website that will make these people switch? In my opinion, what will happen, you will just postpone for 6 months this rapid change because people will not switch during these 6 months, and then you have to do it either way. So you will do the switch, but like in 6 months for the user. So it will make no difference from my perspective, from the user's perspective. I haven't seen anybody doing that, or if they did, I didn't notice the transition period. And that's a proof that basically that this made no sense from the user's perspective to switch like later on. Definitely from the technical perspective, it will be a mess.
Great.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think best case scenario is if it's possible, like the others have said, to do 301 redirects and rip that band-aid off. That's best case scenario. Obviously, they've said in the question that they have to run both websites parallel for about 6 months while customers transition. So maybe they've got some old customers on one domain or system or whatever, and new customers on the other. And it sounds like they want obviously people to go to the new version. I think I have done this before actually a couple of times where I've been in a long time ago, but been in situations where we've had to have parallel websites running. And I would start and test a little section of the site first and see what impact that has. So, for example, you could take some blog posts or pages that don't matter quite as much, and by rel canonicalling them to this new website, you could test and see if Google then starts serving the new URLs. One issue with having both running is essentially if you've got the same content on both, you might end up diluting both, so it could end up being a bit of a mess. If you do decide to use rel canonicals, just bear in mind that make sure you take any kind of no index tags and stuff off of the pages in the new on the new website. But I would be tempted to test it. So I totally agree with everybody that best case scenario is 301 redirect, but I understand that isn't always the case. I think this is a decent approach to at least test and see what happens. But as Ian said, it's just an indicator, rel canonical. So there's a good chance that even though you've made all those changes, Google might totally ignore them because of the sort of history and so on that those original pages had. But yeah, I would like the other option that you could look at is until you're ready to 301 redirect, you could have the new site maybe either less on it or potentially no index or whatever until you're ready to 301, and just have some sort of message explaining that you guys are in the process of moving websites. I can't quite understand why you wouldn't be able to do it.
The only reason that I'm thinking about is like communication, that somebody thinks that they can communicate it in the correct way, the transition. And I don't believe that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think,
we
and that
have
would
some
be,
comments.
and that would be a case of using like messaging, right, to explain that if you're now on this totally new brand, maybe
But you can do it the same thing with a top bar. Like most of the companies that like switch, they have a top bar for 3 months. Like we just moved like from this to that, read more here.
yeah. But if you are going to take this approach, I would definitely test. Joe, you mentioned there's comments.
Yeah, so there's some comments about why somebody would do this. Simon has mentioned that business reasons for the 6 month switch would be business reasons, nothing to do at all with the migration. Rob has said without knowing the why or where the income comes in, it's very hard to say. Mark has said that the goals of running both websites and getting a new site to rank without 301s are not compatible. There isn't a good way to do it. If they have to run both sites, I would index the new one to preserve traffic to the old one before proper 301s. Mom was talking about that canonicals won't alone, they won't shift rankings. Google really moves authority only after the 301 redirects. Monty's talking about index the new one, which can take a while. That sounds a bit messy to obviously have two in parallel. And Simon has as well said, like we've been discussing, test it, perhaps maybe test the least important section. And Monty's come back to what you've said, Tom, like it is probably a communication reason or a case where SEOs are putting in the corner. For me, it sounds a bit like fearing as well. Like they're like, oh, let's just run them both at the same time just in case something happens. But for me, that's why we have a staging server. I think it's important to use that.
The version that I worked on years ago it was a financial product, and basically they were rebranding, but also they were sunsetting a version of the old one. And so that's basically why they wanted to keep both running, because they wanted to use it as an opportunity to let these kind of customers run out, if that makes sense. So once they've completed that financial product and they wanted the new one. So that's why we took that approach. But yeah, that was years ago. So that's nothing to do with this. But that's why they wanted to slowly move over rather than just do the 301 redirect. Because they actually didn't want to transfer those customers, if it makes sense. It wouldn't work.
So it might be that as well. Monsi said about fear. That's why an experienced SEO project manager needs to be in charge. And Mark's nice joke of fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and the whole Star Wars joke there.
No, thanks. I love this chat as well. It just backs up what you're saying. I thought I knew what I was talking about, but it's good to hear it. The rest of you say it as well. I'm going to send them the link to this once it's live. See?
Yeah, loads of chats. I've really just had one question. So thanks everyone for your comments and adding into that. Let's go on to the next one for today.
Okay, super. We'll go with this one. Question for office hours. In regulated industries, in regulated industries, websites often use GEO IP redirects to block users in restricted states. The problem is that this also blocks Googlebot, which prevents important pages from being crawled and indexed, leading to visibility losses. One solution we're exploring is removing the GEO IP redirects and instead keeping all the content indexable while showing a modal or on-page message to users in restricted states. Functionality is restricted, but visibility remains. From an SEO perspective, is this best practice? How do we balance compliance with regulations and the need for search engines to crawl all key pages? Have you seen the pop-up modal approaches work better than logging in restrictions or sticky banners in similar cases? Who would like to kick off on this one?
I'm kicking off on this one.
Go for it,
It's
Ian.
just generally GeoIP, just no. It goes against, it sounds like they know what the problem is there. Google not being able to access parts, like huge parts of the site. So any kind of GeoIP redirections, just, I don't know. Yeah, not best practice. Let's just put it that way. I would test getting rid of it. And if it sounds like if the functionality has been disabled for legal reasons, I'm assuming it's like gaming, iGaming.
Yeah, I missed out a part of the question.
Gambling, or
But it
could be
says
cannabis.
free to play available here. So yes, gaming.
Okay, yeah. So if the functionality is disabled, I would just leave it open and just you could use the GRIP on the pop-up specifically. I always prefer to use like inline messages, so not a big, what do Google call them? Intrusive interstitial. It's a big pop-up, like some sort of inline messaging that just explains what it is, and then at least Google will be able to read all of the page content. And as long as, let's be honest, people are just going to use VPNs if they want to bypass that. But as long as they're being compliant by having that message in certain states, then yeah, I think it's a better way. I think once they've removed that GeoIP, be really cautious. Just check what Google is indexing after that, because it will open up a huge kind of a load of indexing, a load of new pages on there. So I would just run it in parallel with somebody who knows what they're doing from like a technical point of view, someone who can at least read Search Console.
Great. Tom, do you have anything to add?
So if it's legal, I would block features, not content. So if it's, of course, like go to your legal department and check if leaving whatever you're leaving there is legal in a specific state, because I can't say a word about that. But definitely I would first block features, then block content if needed. So exactly how the person wrote.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, do you have anything to add, or is there anything in the chat?
Yeah, I'll read what's the chat. Some good answers there. So we have from Mark said that you could exclude search engine bots from the GEO IP redirect rules. I've just said, have you ever tried to stop a dev giving their opinion? I think it was great just to add that part about, yes, it was gaming. So I agree with what you said, Tom. There is a case where some people have used GEO IP redirects to block users in restricted areas for e-commerce sites, nothing to do with gaming or gambling. And I would avoid doing that because people get frustrated with it. You would just need to write messaging saying, oh, we only deliver to, for example, the US. This seems to happen a lot with US sites and US actual newspapers too. I don't know why they like to block it, even though there's no sort of legal reason to do, because they can just say, you can't deliver to this site. So I would avoid doing that. Let's see if there's anyone else here. Oh, Simon, just come back on that one. This is a big issue with financial sites where different countries have different financial rules. You need to be able to show the correct regulatory info to visitors from a certain region. Okay, so I saw this with some websites. I don't know if it was the financial sites, but that's a good point there, Simon.
It's an interesting point for Mark as well on just excluding the Google's bots from that as well. I know Google themselves, because I'm always iffy on this. I know Google themselves say you should treat them as if you would a normal user. So you should then redirect them. So it's a bit of a grey area because I think there's some fear that it'll look like you're cloaking content, that kind of thing. But that would be the cleanest way, to be fair, just to exclude the bots from those redirects so that they can still read everything. To put it, yeah, interesting to hear that opinion.
Great. My preference, I've worked on a few projects with GEO IP redirects and I very much dislike them. And I think the more you can show, and as Tom said, as long as it's legal, so maybe it's, in this case, you disable actually being able to play in those areas and have a note explaining, a message explaining that's the case, but maybe keep the content there so that people in search engines can still read about your games or whatever it is you're promoting. But yeah, that I've had many headaches with those before. So I think it's good that you're thinking about removing the GEO IP redirects. Ian, it looks like you want to say something.
I was just going to say, they could think about like an affiliate link to ExpressVPN or something, a little side earner.
Great. Okay, next question. Hello, I'm a new content writer working on becoming an SEO specialist. I need clarity on what actually works. How can I create high quality, scroll stopping SEO content consistently without burning out? Is there a formula, a hidden strategy? I'm tired of generic articles. I'm taking courses like HubSpot, Udemy, and Surfer, but I can't find solutions to my challenges. It's been a lonely, tiring journey. I really
Oh,
appreciate your expert tips.
wow. It sounds a bit sad. It sounds like he is a bit lonely, or she.
It does. Okay, who would like to? Actually, Joe, I've just noticed another comment on the last one. I don't know if you want to run through that first.
Yeah, let's do that one. Thank you. Gonzala has said that the official guideline is to treat bots the same as users from that location. So if you need to block the US, you're almost certainly going to block most crawlers. The only like workaround is to have content that's safe in the US that works for SEO and block the rest.
Great, amazing. Okay, let's help a content writer out. Tom, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Sure.
Go
So
for
what
it.
I would recommend as a new content writer, don't become a content writer, but rather a content architect, like somebody that tries to figure out and focuses on strategy, how to create specific content that brings value and creates actual EAT. Why? Because to be honest, AI is there and it's, in my opinion, a lot better than 95 or even 98% of humans. Competing with AI in this space is extremely hard, and from the perspective of monetary, like it's ineffective. So it's better to actually focus on the strategy of building content and how you want to create content and focusing on what kind of values do you want to bring to the end user. That will help you out also not to be burned out because you'll be focused on the value that you need to bring in and like data that you need to gather to create content that brings value. In my opinion, it's extremely hard to compete with AI in this space. So if you're a beginner, think about becoming an architect of this specific niche, like somebody that can manage the whole process and bring in the value. So that's my opinion.
Great. Ian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it is quite tough, and I think a lot of junior operators are scared of AI. But I guess it's just distinguishing yourself as like standing out from the sea of sameness that is like the AI content. I would say to embrace it where you can in your writing as well, because there's things that AI can allow us to do as copywriters, in myself included, that I couldn't do beforehand. So you could write let's say like you could write a piece on mortgages, say for example, and very quickly say, yeah, you could just embed a mortgage calculator in there. So you could ask it how to do it. So you could try to enrich your own content through that. Whereas previously you'd have to ask a designer or a developer. It's a good way, just I think, showcasing a portfolio to have that. But I think what Tom said as well, like niching down as well, just it sounds scary at first. You don't want to close it on any opportunities, but if you can be a specialist in one area and get good at that, you'll probably be able to command like higher rates further down the line.
Great, Joe.
Yeah, I would say these are great answers, but I would also add about the part about the loneliness and it feeling really tired and don't want to get burned out, to be part of different communities, depending on where you are. There's a variety of communities to be involved with. Of course, there's Women in Tech SEO. This is online as well as they have events in person. There's also the FCDC. This is online and in person, depending on where you are. And there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of communities out there. There's a digital marketing union as well. This is online for those that are freelancers. So don't go down this path on your own, because yes, it is very lonely. If you do have other colleagues that you work with, try and meet with them and brainstorm what you could be doing. I think it's a hard journey on your own, so it's better when you can be discussing with others, be part of communities, join shows, join different events, and discuss it with other people, as well as what Tom and Ian have said. And we've got a few comments as well in the chat, but I'll let you go first, Mike, before I go to them.
Great. It's really cool you're taking courses. What I would suggest either on top of that or instead of is write stuff and publish stuff and pick a topic that you're really interested in and maybe have a side project where you're becoming better at what you do and working out what works and have that kind of playground for testing things. That's how I learned SEO over every course and training and mentor or whatever I've had. I'd say actually doing it myself has really helped. And if something's not performing that well, but say, for instance, it's getting impressions, study the competition and try and work out why that's performing better. But I think not every piece of content is going to win. And also winning might be different for different pieces of content. For instance, obviously there's generating organic traffic, but there also might be content that gets you coverage in different places, or it might be great for social media, but not necessarily SEO. I think getting really good at producing different types of content and having those case studies is super helpful. I think what the other guy said about AI is really important. One thing I always try and do is think about what can I produce that AIs can't, and that's where you get into interviewing people, for example, or looking at the data that you can get access to, whether it's a client that you're working with or whatever, from their CMS or what they have in their CRMs, and trying to build really interesting data and pieces that others want to use. And then the other thing that I don't think they can do quite as well yet is also work out ways to bring that content to life. So whether that's through video, podcasts, and look at using it in multiple ways. So that those would be the things I'm testing. And then what's working, I might then apply to, say, the clients I'm working with, or if I'm working in the house, that stuff. Joe, do we have any comments?
Yes, we do. And when I was talking about communities, I'm sorry, I failed to mention the SEO Mindset podcast. I did mention Search with Candor earlier. I would look into that to join the Search with Candor. They have loads of podcasts coming up. I'm going to share the links in the chat here as well, and then you can have a look at that. And yes, in terms of some of these other comments, we have, sorry, just reading everything here. There's loads actually. Simon said, get inspiration from the writers you're inspired by, read all their work. And Victoria said as well, yes, you can't be a good writer if you don't read more. And Jeff has suggested Kyle Roof's White Hat SEO course. Also set up a test site where you can try generic stuff versus new strategies and use that to grow. Francesco said, and use a few great pieces, and rather a few great pieces instead of constantly trying to churn out new stuff that is generic, just to publish something. So don't just write something for the sake of it. Sarah has said, ask yourself, what is your why? Why are you creating the content? Make sure you've got a plan and make sure you lead with purpose. It's hard to compete with AI, but what you can do is you can lean on your own experience. So think about the expertise, authority, and trust as well. And actually, Victoria said this was a really good question. Victoria came on the show last week. So Victoria has been coming on the show as an audience member for many weeks, and she said this was her last year. So she has said, learn about SEO strategy, technical SEO, leverage AI to write so that you can edit the content from your best content writer skills. So it's coming from experience that she has shared this. So thank you for that. I'm just looking to see if anything else as well. Sorry, there's loads of things here, loads of comments. We've got the less and more quality, the better, Victoria said. So Hence why you should also have a content strategy and stick to that. Loads of different ones. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to share the different communities and podcasts that you could be part of as well.
Amazing. Okay, next question. In WordPress, do posts and pages matter differently for SEO? Or should we treat them the same? And is anybody a WordPress user here or familiar with WordPress?
Yeah, a couple of WordPress sites. I think fundamentally, I don't think Google's going to treat them any differently, whether something's a post or a page. It usually just comes down to architecture. Pages are more like standalone, you'd be more free with the LinkedIn, whereas if it's a post, then it usually sits within that like blog ecosystem. So I've seen some sites will use a page builder or like will use a page specifically because it can do more with it, like design wise. So it's just making sure that if you do want to treat that as a blog, that the two are linked from like that hub. But no, not as far as I'm aware, no, they shouldn't be treated any differently. It's similar to Shopify, where it's you've got pages on there and you've got collections. Sometimes people make collections on pages just because there's more flexibility. But as long as, like I say, the internal links are all married up and shouldn't be a problem.
Great. Tom, do you have anything to add?
I basically agree with Ian. If you want to group it in somehow, like in WordPress, then probably that would be a plus because you will create categories, topics, and that would help you to group it. If not, then probably pages. Of course, you can create a hierarchy of pages, which will also group it from the perspective of Google, potato, doesn't matter. It's the same thing, but like the structure, the sitemap will impact.
I was just thinking why people have done it before in the past that I've worked with, and it's if they want like an evergreen piece of content, they'll generally do it on a page, just because if it is a blog, it'll eventually get pushed down if it's chronologically sorted, and then it'll be on like page 2 or page 3. So some people do that as a way to pin it to the top, but you can do that with pages as well, posts as well. Sorry, it's all about implementation.
The actual posts part, in terms of SEO, whether in terms of rankings, I've not noticed a difference in terms of whether posts or pages are served. I think what you were talking about in terms of the architecture and a post is something that's usually sorted by time. So it's quite helpful if you wrote something 3 years ago, it's either difficult to find or somebody comes across it. It's very obvious if you're using the sort of post page type as opposed to a page. I think what Ian was saying is if about evergreen content, that if you're creating a load of guides and things like that, then maybe going down the page route makes total sense. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to come back to what you just said there about the pages of guides, I would say that if you are wanting to implement a sort of pillar and post strategy, then your pillar page is basically where you should be talking about the information about that particular product. And then the posts then will support those pages. So it will go down into different topics about each of those products. So maybe your page is about I love chocolate chip cookies, and maybe you'll actually go into each of the posts about how to bake one, how to make vegan ones, how to make potentially healthier versions of those. And we've got quite a few comments as well in the chat, but I would like to highlight this one actually because it was a good point where Gonzalo was talking about the most important thing really actually is to make sure you have your updates updated daily or regularly. With WordPress, sometimes you can just leave it and not a good idea. Make sure you keep those plugins updated regularly. I was just going to say a couple of the one that points what Francisco's saying that it's a different she agrees with what you said, Ian, but it's not really much of a difference, just a different way to publish your content. Post is more for a blog style, but pages is more for that service or potentially, product page. I think that's it. Actually, one more about blogs from Simon. Blog posts are not always seen as the evergreen content. Like we said, it's more of the pages. Those are the evergreen content. And I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Super. We've got a similar question actually, so I might use this one because it's like a follow-up. So for a real estate website, we publish a weekly report and currently keep it on one evergreen URL that we update every Monday. Is this one continuously updated URL best, or should we be creating new dated URLs each week? and aggregate them with an index page? If the latter, how should canonicals and internal linking be handled to avoid dilution and maximize discoverability? Who would like to kick off on this one? Tom, are you okay?
I think I can say something.
Go
I
for it,
don't
Tom.
have much
Go
to
for it.
Go for
I
it.
don't have much to say. It's always a question of cannibalization. So basically, if you see a reason that the niche focuses on dates, so for example, monthly, if somebody searches like this term 2025 in May, then probably you would create different pages. But at the other hand, like what I see with evergreen content is that SEOs avoid to use dates in slugs. So just to remove it, just to get the backlinks to the specific page that creates authority for the page and then update it regularly, so weekly, monthly, to rank straight away on up-to-date content. So it depends on what you want to get. If these reports are chronological and you want to see like the customers are looking how it was like a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, then you can basically create multiple pages on that. But if it's evergreen for a specific year, then do it on a yearly basis and update it every so often, how often you want. This is my approach, how I would approach it. But like maybe, and maybe you have something to add.
Yeah, I don't want to say it depends, but it depends on because the fact that said
Dude, it
weekly kind of
depends.
it scares us. Do I have to pay a fine? No, I said it depends.
Yes, it's £500 for
Ah,
you.
okay. If it because if that my thought with weekly is I just can't see there being that much difference or that much changing. If it's just a graph and then a bit of blurb, then you don't want to have separate URLs because then you'll just end up with a load of low quality content. But I also thought of like long tail. So like people searching for what was the property market like in October 2024, they could rank for that. But again, it comes down to the quality of it. So I quite like the approach of just having one URL, evergreen URL, where it's the highlights, but potentially they could go into monthly or aggregate it all, or even quarterly or something like that. Because we had a similar, I worked with a site who did like property auctions, and then it was like a mortgage every week, like an event every week, sorry. And they ran into the problem where it's years and years down the line that had all these generic pages, and then they ended up having broken backlinks. So what we did there was actually like no index the pages, keep them on the site, but no index them after I think it was 6 months, where like interest really drops off. But then if you did want to go on, you could go on the site and use the internal search to find those reports. But it was just clogging the index after so long. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, those are some great points, Ian and Tom. I wanted to say, actually, to add on to what you mentioned, Ian, that real estate, it does change a lot. And I think it'd be important to keep one URL. And maybe what you could do is, as you mentioned, you'd have this for potentially you'd update this for every quarter because it's things like the interest rates, they change every couple of months, but really there's not. I used to work in real estate a few years ago. Perhaps it's changed now, but I wouldn't say there's huge amounts of update unless there's lots of inflation happening in one particular country. So there wouldn't be, I would say, enough to create, okay, we're going to have a new URL for this week, a new URL for this month. And you could just put it in your news section. And then what you could do then have archives for the last quarter because it's still interesting, the data, but then you could actually then allow people to look at it in the future. They could go look and say, okay, what was it in Q4 of 2023, Q4 of 2024, and so on.
Great. I was just going to add, if there's not very much change to the actual report each week, I would be tempted to leave it as it is. It's amazing that you're updating it every Monday to keep people up to date with the housing market. And if there is a difference over each quarter or each year, I'd be tempted to almost create a yearly edition where people can then refer back to last year and compare or the last couple of years. So that maybe save some of the content that you've created over each quarter, like Joe was saying, and then have the 2025, 2024, and so on. But yeah, if there's not much change, I think updating the same one every Monday is perfect. And possibly if there's like a different analysis, you could also include that in the yearly editions to refer to different things happening throughout the year. Joe, do we have any comments before we try and...
Yeah, we do actually. So Simon says fresh content on one subject on one URL. and make sure you have a CTA on it, newsletter sign up. So that's a great idea, actually, because if you do have all this data, what you could then do is turn it into a newsletter. If people are not obviously going to the site, you could get more clients coming to the site by having them subscribe to this. And we also have from Job is also saying trends are just as important as fresh information. He said you might want to keep that old information on the actual URL, I would say. And Mark said if there's demand for the older information, like Ian, he had said, then he'd keep the main content on the same URL and then relegate archive stuff onto their own URLs rather than new URL each time. That feels unlikely though. Sarah said, this is what I'm thinking. You could make the archive data still available, accessible for those who want to know. Yeah, because it's a lot of information actually. And especially in housing with the way things are going, data is quite important and you could actually then be able to look at it in the future. So perhaps, yeah, Monty was talking about maybe why are you creating those reports every week? Maybe you could create them internally every week potentially and then publish them monthly. It might be less admin for you to do that. Okay, that's great. We've got loads of questions. I just wanted to say thanks everyone for joining us, our 80th episode. And thank you all for watching from home. So everyone that's enjoying it, click a like on the YouTube channel, subscribe, and on our video. And we'll be continuing to run SEO office hours for the foreseeable future. So do come and join us. It's going to be every morning, Friday at 9:30 a.m. British Summer Time. And if you would like to speak, we've got a couple of slots open in October. Let us know. I'll hand back to you, Mike.
Super. Great. By the way, I really love the fact that when some people can't make office hours, they let me know. I think it's lovely. Some of the audience, and I've got this in the question. Hi, hey, Mike, I can't make SEO office hours this week, but wanted to flag this Brodie Clark article, and Joel will share the link. Were we wrong about the great decoupling after all? Brodie suggests that the spike in Google Search Console impressions without matching clicks were thought to be tied to AI overviews, have really been inflamed by bot crawler impressions from SEO tools using the parameter number 100. Since Google disabled the parameter, impressions have dropped off and rank tracking tools have now been disrupted as a result. So my question is, do you think this indicates that our GSE data has been significantly polluted by bot traffic over the past year? If so, how should SEOs begin reframing these metrics, especially impressions and click-through rates, in reporting to avoid misleading conclusions?
I can take that one. So definitely this hit us like over the weekend. This is a hot topic. Nobody knows exactly what is the impact. Like I will tell you my personal story on Monday because I own a tool for AI SEO writing. We had like fire on board like on Monday because data for SEO was down. So I basically saw hands-on what was happening there. I think SEMrush, Ahrefs, data for SEO, like their servers were burning on Monday because of a simple reason, like some num 100 using this parameter, they were able to check 100 positions with using one search. And all of a sudden, like to check rank tracking, they need to do 10 searches, like using pagination to check if somebody is ranking on a specific page, like position 60, 70, 80. So data for SEO definitely was down. Moz probably they were also down. You will not see it in the status because they didn't report it, unfortunately. But the problem that we see in Google Search Console is definitely, that's my opinion, that a lot of the traffic that we saw, a lot of the views there was created by tools that were rank tracking, most of them rank tracking, just to see what is the position of my customer on which position are they on. I think our data was polluted, but coming back to the data, should we look at it from like the perspective of analytics in a different way? Not much. Clicks are stayed the same. Positions went up, views went down. Why positions went up? Because Google Search Console takes average. So if they see less of views, then the positions will go up, and that's natural. But the clicks more or less stayed the same. I don't see much difference in the clicks on many Google Search Consoles. So we can still treat clicks as the point of truth. And we have to live with the new reality. Why Google did that? Probably to go after AI, like that are using Google to check like who is ranking for what. That's my opinion. So they wanted to block it at scale. I don't know if I answered the question.
Great. That's Ian. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything there, Tom. I did notice I think it's still got the great decoupling is still a thing. I think that is still linked to AI in terms of fewer people clicking on the site. So that's that like divide, isn't it? But it seems like it's because that just happened around about the time when AI overviews came out, the kind of thing. But I think, yeah, for clients myself, I've seen the average positions like jumping up massively from an average of 20 to 10. Shows looks good on reports, but clicks has been pretty much consistent. So it's just explaining that in terms of like, how Tom did it, there's fewer people viewing kind of result number 100. It's not getting the data with it. So it's a funny one.
Yeah. So what I can add is to what Ian just said and Gorgonzola, that positions and CTRs going up must be great for SEOs. I saw many posts of people on LinkedIn saying, finally, what we did like works. No, it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, everybody right now re-signing contracts with their clients. Yeah, it's great. Joe, do you have anything to add on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to reference the decoupling. This was an article that was written by the person that came up with the decoupling was Darwin Santos. So he wrote also an article just a couple months ago in July about the decoupling of search and the birth of the agentic web. I believe he had mentioned this before as well. So I just wanted to give that back to him. In terms of what's happening, yes, very disappointing about this moving the NUM 100. Mike, you just shared that Jordan's been following it and has written about it as well. So do check out Reflect Digital about the impact of that. And I'm just looking through some of the other comments. So Simon has said that he he said, yeah, you have some ideas. Mark has some opinions about it. And I saw, Mark, your photo earlier this week, I think on LinkedIn about search. It's a Google search called Impression. It's an adult toy for marketers, and it has like a dice. So, yeah, basically leaves us all to not be able to. It's just a funny, very joke. Sorry. Look in the chat, everyone, about the adult toy that Mark has shared. Gonzalo said that position and CTRs going up must be great for SEOs. Yeah, that we just talked about that joke. Sorry, I'm just laughing a lot here. Love SEO office hours. I think that's it, really. Yes, it just keeps us on our toes, and it's just a bit annoying, really. It's just another thing that we need to be looking at. Unfortunately, it was very useful that num 100, but it just allowed us to be able to count where we were ranking in the search results. But yeah, let's see what is in store for next. I do believe as well, yeah, maybe it is because of the AI overviews, because we did see that actually some references to the sites that were in AI overviews were actually not on the first page of Google. They were on maybe the second page. So it went against the fact of, oh, I'm not actually ranking that high, but I am appearing in Google AI overviews. I don't know, and maybe some people know what the impact of is around anything else. If anyone's done any tests about it, this is just my opinion, what I've seen. Yeah, that's it. Preeti's also said that, yeah, I love a lot of things we talk about are like inside jokes. Yes. Sorry, those that are not watching us live, you cannot see the funny image that Mark showed, but if you go on his LinkedIn profile, he's got loads of followers. He shares things loads of times. You will see it on his profile if you check it out, probably today or this weekend. Otherwise, he's got loads of posts and you will miss that joke. So join us live next week for
Join us
our
live.
81st episode.
Great. I think all of this stuff is just a good reminder that all of the different tools we use are good indicators in terms of how things are going. But what really matters is sales, downloads, inquiries, leads, all of those things that come through your CMS. And like I've seen lots of people get excited about moving from, say, 87 to 63, but in reality, it doesn't really make a massive difference to the business. And so I think although it's lovely to have all this data and so on, I think the most important thing is achieving the main objective. And sometimes I think we get caught up in the like impressions and average ranks and so on. But that's just my opinion. Do we have time? Yes, we have time. So we've got one last regular question that we always ask, which I can never find because my notes are everywhere each week. And that is basically, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment? Everyone going to say the great decoupling. Tom, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
I'm very excited on what SEO AI systems can do. So what we can do using systems. I'm not talking here about vanilla LLM. Like, so if you go to ChatGPT and ask something, like you can't get much out of that. But every single week, like that I'm working with the systems like in SEO, it proves me that it can do much more than I thought it can. Even in topics that I thought, nope, still human needs to be here on the loop, like not so much. So this is what I'm excited about.
Great. Ian, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
I think very quickly, it's the shift that SEO is going from that more tactical approach to the more strategic approach. And I think having less data, it helps that a bit. I think we always focus on the tactical because those have to be an ROI, but I'm seeing a few more clients that are open to the idea of trying something out, that kind of explore and exploit thing that Rory Sutherland always talks about. To be interested to do more of that and letting AI do more of the basic stuff that I did 15 years ago.
Great. Joe, what are you most excited about? I can probably guess, but go for it.
I'm really excited about events, but also I just saw Simon's comment about the toy. It was a fun toy. It's not adult. I hope we can. It's
Very
like
good
it's a
decision,
dice. It's a
Simon.
dice. It's just a regular dice. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Great. Okay, we will finish there. Let me compose myself. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live. Thank you, to our live audience. Thank you to those watching us afterwards on YouTube. Please come and join us. We have so much fun. As I said, it's so much better live. Thank you so much to our special guests this week, Ian and Tom. You've been amazing. Thank you to those who submitted questions. And as always, thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mike, Tom,
Thank
and
you.
Ian. Thanks
Have
for
a
very
coming,
much, guys.
everyone.
great day
Bye.
You too.
next week.
Bye.